where we discuss community with today's nonprofit leader.
Tess, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Before we get into the wonderful things that your organization is doing, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from originally, and how did your life kind of end up getting you to where you are today in this line of nonprofit work?
Yeah. I was born and raised here in Sandpoint, Idaho, and I've lived in Coeur d'Alene for the last 25 years. So many series of events have happened to get me to this point. So I was, in my younger years, started using substances at a really young age, and I was which is 13, and I got pregnant when I was 16 and had a baby at 17. So I think over the years, just my mental health, compounded with substance use, just kind of spiraled out of control. It didn't kind of spiral, it definitely spiraled. And by the time I was 38, I had been arrested multiple times. I had, wrecked vehicles, and just, thank God I never got my kids taken away, during this period of time. But, should I have? Maybe.
It could have
happened.
Legitimately happened,
sure.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so in 2017, I was highly intoxicated and just had spiraled. I had no hope and just was suicidal, and my mental health had declined so terribly. I had wrecked my car again and ended up arrested, and I knew that this time it was a really big deal, and
kind of the strikes. You had enough strikes against you, yeah.
Yeah, and I got a 15-year prison sentence.
Whoa.
Yeah, which was I knew something bad was going to happen and that I probably was going to have to do some time, but 15 years was a huge slap in my face, know. The judge at the time, he had done, and he has, he's been, now that looking back, I'm he saved my life, and that prison sentence was, I knew that day when I was being arrested that I was I was done. I was just done living this life that I had created, and it wasn't the legacy that I wanted to leave behind for my children and my family. And I didn't, I wanted things to change, but I didn't really know how to change them on my own. So I needed that push.
Were you married when this was happening?
I was,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So my oldest son is 29. And he is married and has babies. So I'm a grandma.
Good-looking grandma.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. And then I have a 18-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter.
Okay.
So my younger two were 9 and 10-ish.
Okay.
My math is not great. So 9 and 10-ish when this all happened. And my husband, we've been married for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And he is a saint because he put up with me, you know. And so he knew too, something, this isn't good. And I went into treatment right away. Mm-hmm. And
this was after the sentence?
No, this is before the sentencing.
Okay.
So I didn't even know what was going to happen. I knew it was bad, but I knew that I was ready to make that change right then and there. I was am I going to I'm going to die is ultimately what's going to happen, or I'm going to end up in prison forever.
And you hadn't pursued treatment before. You were just kind of on your own, just kind of trying to.
And here's the whole thing: recovery is not linear, right? People want to say you're in recovery and you're healed and you're fine, and it's not like that. When you are addicted to drugs or alcohol in any capacity, it can look like this. Just because I've been sober for the last 8 years doesn't mean that I'm very confident in my sobriety, so I know that I'm not going to go back out using. but it happens all the time, right? Like something happens, someone loses someone really close to them, and it just is that trigger where it's like, I don't care and I need this to cope, because that was your coping skill for, for me, it was 25 years. That was a coping skill. That's a long time to change all those habits. So, I made the change. I got into treatment, and I had a taste of treatment back in 2009. Judge Mitchell I did DUI court because I had other DUIs, and that was like a 12-month program, very extensive. I got a lot of really good, I call them knowledge nuggets, It was like planting the seed of recovery in my brain. I went to AA, and I did all these things. I went to treatment, did counseling and intensive outpatient program, like groups and all the things. But it just, when I was done with that program, it was like that structure was gone, right? And like I just kind of went back to, it was like, I'm cured, maybe I can dabble, maybe I can drink. Drinking leads to other things. And at that point in my life, I didn't see the spiral. Like I didn't know that that's what was going to happen, but that's what happened, And so in 2017, when that was like the big, slap in my own face, really, that do I want to keep doing this over and over again? The same thing that I've been doing over and over again since I was 13. Part of the criminal justice system, like always on probation, and then long stints of being off, so it was like that success, an achievement of, I did it, I'm done, like, I'm good, and you're not. So,
were you able to have like a steady job during this time?
Yeah, which is pretty weird. I mean, I've had like really good jobs my whole life, right? And so I'm like, how was I functioning so impaired? Like functioning, and there were times when my employers were like, enough is enough, but I think I had enough charisma to where people were just like, this is Tess, she's wild, and
you're just good with people, and so people let a lot go, like
they let it slide,
the other way or whatever,
and that was a problem too, right? Is so many people in my life just let things slide. Like nobody ever came to me and was like, Tess, I am so worried about you. Like,
really, never?
Like never, I at least maybe I was too intoxicated and don't remember, but very few people like really stood there and said something's wrong, and I see it, and it's something, and if they did, I probably dismissed it, and was just like, whatever. But, so I went to treatment that next day. I got arrested that night. My husband got me out the next day because I called him. I said, I'm in jail. And he's like, again? And I'm like, it's bad this time. And he, it's money. It's like, if I could go back all the times that I had been arrested and all the everything that we've put into like just all the mistakes that I've made, I could probably put a down payment on a house, but I don't regret it either, because I don't feel like I'd be where I am today, if I didn't have that lived experience. So I hadn't gotten my sentencing yet. I went to treatment. I did intensive outpatient. I actually completed the intensive outpatient program in Coeur d'Alene called Port of Hope. And I finished it, and then I stayed. I just kept going, and my counselor was like, I'm like, do I have to like stop coming? Because
like, I'm not ready.
I wasn't ready. And she said, no, just, you can come here and be a part of the group, and, it doesn't matter. And so she...
what is that, a nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit that was the only inpatient in Coeur d'Alene. And then when they went out of business, we don't have any inpatient treatment.
Now?
Yeah, they left years ago. And so I got to connect. So here's the thing about counseling too. and I don't know, we're kind of off topic, but
No topics off.
Okay.
All topics are on the table.
Okay. So, with treatment, like I had never connected with my counselor, right? And I think that was part of the problem with my DUI court that I had went through, is that counselor that I was seeing at the time, I really felt like I was her counselor, you know? So it was like I was like absorbing her crap that she needed to get off her chest, you
That's
know?
bizarre.
And so it was really a weird kind of like counseling relationship. So I tell people today, I'm like, make sure you connect with your counselor, because when I ended up going to Port of Hope, my counselor, who's now passed, her name was Dixie Taylor, and she actually worked here in Sandpoint area for years ago. Like, I walked in, and she was this super cool hippie lady, you know, with all her jewelry and rings and everything, you know, and I was like, she goes, what'd she say? So what's your DOC? And I was like, well, I was like, alcohol is my number, you know, is my number one. I was like, but I'm a polysubstance user. And I was like, I really like cocaine. And she was like, oh, that was my DOC. So she had that lived experience, right? And she was like, I was an alcoholic, and I did speed and, you know, all these things, and life got wild. And I was like, it was like, dink, you know, that connection, because I was like, you understand, like, what I've been going through, you know?
So do you think that people that haven't had that issue shouldn't go into that line of counseling then?
No, I don't think that at all. I mean, I have a really close friend of mine right now that is getting her master's in social work, and, you know, not everyone's in recovery. That's okay. But we work as a team. So I also work as a mobile crisis response, a peer and mobile crisis response for the 988 suicide crisis line. So I'm a responder that goes out to crisis calls, which sometimes we're the first line of offense, you know, like defense for a person to meet with someone.
And what is that? Just you said, is it just for suicide, or what kind of crises are you called to?
It's all mental health, substance use. I mean, a crisis is a crisis, and it's different to each individual, right? I mean, we deal with people in psychosis or, you know, nonverbal autism, people that are, you know, in like psychosis from substance use. I mean, it's everything. And so it's to me, I'm like, we need to take out the 988 like suicide crisis, because then people think they're limited to like, but we've met with elderly people that, you know, they hadn't eaten for 3 days, and that's a crisis, you know, like they're starving. And so we've, you know, go and we meet with them and get them connected to resources. And this is outside of 208 recovery. I do a million things. So, yeah.
Okay, so you connected with a counselor,
and
that's really important. And then the program was over, but
I kept going, until my sentencing. And then when I was sentenced, then I went to South Boise Women's Correctional Center, and my whole attitude was like, this is a time of reflection to figure out like who I am and what I want to do and the legacy I want to leave behind and all the things in life, right? And like I've never had time to myself, really. So when I went down there, I was like, all right, you know, I was motivated. I took advantage of every single class and group that they had, which wasn't a lot, you know, I'm not going to lie. The system needs to pump up like what their programming looks like, you know, so that people have the opportunity to learn. But I read like 15 books when I was in there, you know, and so I did a lot of.
And your kids were still pretty young at this time.
They were like 9 and 10, like in that age range. And so my husband told them, Mom went to school, so they had no idea I went to prison.
Really?
Yeah, so they were like, you know. For us, that was way too heavy of a weight for them to bear, like knowing that Mom had some serious substance problems and that, you know, like even I think that we protected our kids pretty well, like from it, you know, like my husband has been my partner for a very long time, and he knew when I would spiral, and I didn't, you know, like I tried to keep it away from our home, and which was really scary for my husband because he'd be like, you know, like, is she just gone? And, you know, he'd usually see me like, I'd be gone for a day, you know, or 2 max, and then I'd come home. Towards the end, it got really bad.
And so, but at the time, you thought you were going to be gone for 15 years, or?
Well, so my sentencing, when the judge said, you know, we're giving you 9 determined, which means like this is a determined, you know, the courts are giving you 9 years, and then 7 indetermined, which means that can be then given to you at a later time if things don't go right. But then what they call a retained jurisdiction, which is a rider, and their rider program is usually a 6-month program for someone of like their first rider, and then they have an AP like their AP rider, which means you've gotten in trouble, you've done a rider, you've went back, you know, you're doing another rider. It's like I know the court system very, very
See,
well.
I know nothing. You're like telling me all new information. Like, I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I actually work with the criminal justice system now. A lot has changed. So when I got out, I don't know why I did this, but I was like, I'm going to be a realtor because everyone in Idaho is a realtor, you know, and the house.
And how long did you actually end up staying?
6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah, 6 months. When I got back, I did because of everything that I had put all the classes and all the work that I had done, the judge was like, you know, we're going to go ahead and release you to probation.
So what would it have been if you hadn't been doing all those classes? Like how?
Yeah, it would have been 9 years. 9 years. It could have been 9 years. And then
if you were like well behaved but didn't do all the classes
let's say I, you know, there's a lot of reasons why you can get in trouble when you're in prison. The whole prison system is like, you know, there are women in there that have nothing, and they don't have support systems on the outside. And, you know, they're trying to get people to put money on their books so they can buy a candy bar, you know, and you're given like a pair of scrubs and a pair of shoes, you know, like you're given these clothes to wear by the Department of Corrections. But if you're lucky, like I was, like I had a support system, and my husband like bought me new shoes, and you know, like I had money on my books, and I could purchase things in there that I needed or to make things more comfortable for me while I was in there, and so then it becomes like a pecking order, right? Like they're like, oh, well, this girl can get whatever she wants. Like, so then they'll be kind to you because they want to see, you know, like what can I get from this person, which is normal, you know? I mean, it's kind of...
That exists outside of prison as well.
It really does, you know? And I'm like, it's a different... like the COs were not very nice, you know, and it's very militant, like boot camp almost. I was in a low security prison, so it was, you know, we could go and walk the yard and have that like outdoor time, and we didn't have the prison fences with the razor wire, you know. But when you get into maximum security, it's totally different. And the COs still don't like you for the most part, you know, but, or they have to act like they don't, you know, like it's very like hierarchy and you're on the bottom of the totem pole, you know, but I did things like the bike program where we built bikes for kids for Christmas, and I got trained to do suicide watch because girls would try to commit suicide while they were in there, and they'd get put in a rubber room pretty much with a big window, shatterproof window, and they'd have to be under 24-hour surveillance. So, you do different things to pass time and be as active and involved in that community. And when I got out, I was like, I am never going back there, like that was, so I had to find like, what am I going to do?
Okay. And one quick question before you talk about becoming or thinking you're going to be a realtor. Did you make any friends, like anybody you still are connected to now?
Actually. Yes, I did.
And are they still in, or have they gotten out? Or?
Well, so a few of the people have become recovery coaches and are working for recovery centers in Idaho. So it's really interesting. Like, I have 2 girls that I was in prison with are actually running other recovery centers in Kamei, Idaho, and in Lewiston, Idaho. And so I was at a recovery leadership thing earlier this year, and I walked in and I was like, what? Here's, I was like, do you remember me? And it was like we reconnected, and it was really awesome to see. I know of 5 girls that I was in prison with that are doing really well and that I've stayed connected to. And so
cool. Just curious about that. But go on about you were going to be a realtor, because everyone in Idaho is a realtor.
Yeah, which was short-lived. And then I was like, I really love recovery. Like, I am so grateful for my recovery and where I'm at. And somebody had told me, years and years ago, Tess, you should be a peer support specialist. And I was like, well, what is that? And they're like, someone that struggles with their mental health, that is doing the things and had overcome it. And I was kind of like, and they walk the journey with someone else. And I was like, So that kind of popped back into my mind. So I did get my real estate license.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. And but while I was doing my real estate license, I was also simultaneously getting my peer support certification and my recovery coach certification. And so when I sat them all out in front of me, I was kind of like, okay, do I want to do this? And I was like, yuck. And then I was like, do I want to do this? And I was like, absolutely. That's the direction that I want to go in. And so I started volunteering at a recovery center, and it just grew. The people that I was meeting, and I started out doing a volunteering as a yoga instructor because I had done some yoga training, and I was like, I could do a level 1. We could do yoga classes and get people kind of moving and active, and then it just kind of grew, and I was like, I think I really love recovery coaching. I love I have the lived experience with both substance use and mental health, and to be able to share that and connect with people on that level and be able to help them, to give them hope that they're not alone and that there is a way out, and it doesn't have to be this cycle over and over again, and that there's no judgment. People slip, and we're all human, and that doesn't make them subhuman if they have an accident, and they go back out for a minute and they come back, and it's people get scared and they're like, what is everyone going to think of me? If I relapsed, and it's we're here for you regardless of, whether you're in active use, whether you've been sober for, 20 years, it doesn't matter. So in 2022, is when 208 Recovery was born. Yeah. And I was encouraged by the community in Coeur d'Alene to like open a recovery center. And so I started from the ground up. I did all, like, I never hired an attorney to do all the documentation, you know, like file everything with the state. It's a lot of paperwork, and I got our 501c3 through the federal government issued in 2022. And it was just kind of like, okay, now what? You know, like, how do you run a nonprofit? I mean, you do it through volunteer work, right? And getting and gaining volunteers. And I had a wonderful board of support, you know, that sat on the board of 208 Recovery, but we didn't have the funds to like open the doors, you know.
Were people nervous about doing that since there was the other one that had gone away? Were you kind of doing the same thing as the nonprofit that had helped you?
Yes, you know, kind of.
Like, that one didn't last, so should we?
Well, no, because that one was in business for a very long time. But,
okay.
But the problem was, and this could be totally my opinion.
Okay.
Is that it's really difficult for people to have a pulse on a community that they don't live in. And so that was the problem with the other recovery center, is that the owner did not live in that community, you know, in our community. And so therefore it just kind of wasn't, you know, it wasn't managed right.
Yeah.
And so, so 208 was born, and our board meets every single month. And for 2 years, every phone call that came in, it was me, you know, calling and meeting and creating recovery plans and, you know, doing the volunteer work of, my husband's like, you work 7 days a week, you know, nonstop. And I do. But I love what I do, and I've mastered the being able to work while I'm on vacation.
Don't do that. Come on now.
Well, hey, I'd rather work and, you know, be in Mexico or, you know, like, it's not really work. And so I have boundaries too, you know, but a lot of that self-care kind of went when I was trying to get everything up and going. But
so for 2 years you were completely volunteer, and
actually 2.5. I mean, we're going on 3. I have never taken a paycheck from 208 Recovery.
Whoa, wow.
All my time I've invested is just for my community, and it was my way of like giving back, you know, being like, I am invested in, you know, all the chances and everything that I was given all of the years. You know, I'm sure that there were a lot of bridges that I had burnt, and, you know, people that I treated poorly, and things that I'm not like super proud about, you know. So like, to be able to do something for the community and to, like, you know, change that whole like, I guess, because I like having people look at me in a different way, right? Like, instead of being like, oh, she was just a drunk, you know, hanging out and causing mischief everywhere she went.
Are there any paid employees there now?
Yeah.
There are? Okay.
Yep. So this is like, we just opened September 26th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So literally.
Okay. So you were, when you say just open, what do you mean? Because for when you were doing it kind of on your own, you weren't actually open then?
We were open, but it's difficult when you don't have a brick and mortar place for people to drop in, right? So it was a lot of telehealth, right? Or meeting people in the community. And so I've always had an office down off of Lakeside at what they call the Den, which is a collaborative workspace. It's super bougie and like cute. It's kind of tech bro-ish, you know, but super cool. It's got a coffee shop there, so it was a great space for me to be able to work out of and meet people there, where it was just like super casual in the community. But this, you know, we finally got recognized like by the state, where and had enough support from across the state. I mean, to kind of rewind, like, it's been a year and a half, I think, I was appointed by the governor to be on the Behavioral Health Planning Council. So I serve on a lot of different boards and work groups.
And that was just them kind of learning about you through word of mouth.
Yeah.
And somebody reached out to you and was like, hey, I would love, okay.
Yeah. So because I've had so much like criminal justice involvement, I think they were kind of like, strange,
Yeah.
that this whole like turn of the tides kind of a thing. And so, so I started to serve on all of these different boards and just really got to know the community like in depth of like, who's doing what and what's going on and what resources do we have. And then, I had my peer and recovery coaching. And if you don't know what peer support is, I can explain that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So peer support is people with lived experience with mental health, getting trained, learning all, like what the resources are, or knowing the resources in the community, being able to help other people that are struggling with their mental health, My mental health was severe depression, anxiety, and then recovery coaches, and they're two totally different credentialing systems, right? Which I think is silly. But recovery coaching is people with lived experience with substance use, and so they take that lived experience, they help others navigate, through recovery, through substance, away from substance use. We promote sobriety 100%, right? But sobriety isn't always the way people want to go, right? So we also support harm reduction.
Okay.
And what that looks like is, if someone is a heroin IV user, if they're an IV user, period, it doesn't matter what the drug is, being able to provide like clean needles, which is super controversial, right? Because people are like, well, if you're giving them clean needles, then you're just like telling them it's okay to use. And it's like, you know what? If you get the opportunity to have that conversation with the person and be able to sit down with them, multiple times, and they build that trust in you that you can be that person that talks about your concerns and is able to plant that seed of recovery and what that looks like. And when they're ready and they're say, I want to go to inpatient treatment, you're going to be the first person that they go to that says, hey, they've been with me through all of this, thick and thin, like they've seen me at my lowest and I'm ready now. And that time does come eventually.
Yeah.
But if you just kick people to the curb and say, you know what, that's what's happened their whole lives. You're just garbage and nobody cares. And that's what they've seen, and that's maybe how they've been treated. And so we make it a point to support, our number one is really sobriety, but that harm reduction piece is so important. And it's not just clean needles, that's Narcan distribution and giving the people like an opportunity to live, so that they don't die. Because we've had a ton of people die in our area.
Yeah, and you see the needle piece, like the harm reduction as just on the path to sobriety. That's like...
It could be a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's not like the core thing, a lot of it. So with peer and recovery coaching, it's that co-occurring. It was important for me to get both certifications because I had both, right? So it allows me to be overseen, we have, just like a counselor or whatever, you have to get your credentialing through, the IBADCC, which is the Idaho Board of Alcohol and Drug Counselors. They oversee the SUD, which is Substance Use Disorder certification for recovery coaches. And then BPA stands for something super weird, but they oversee the peer support here in the state of Idaho. So those are just some really boring factual stuff. But, yeah.
Great. And so your brick and mortar location is what opened on September 26th, you said? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're very fresh, and is business overflowing? Like, was it like people have just been so anxious for this kind of location? What do you kind of need as you're opening your doors, as far as, funding, employees, volunteers, word of mouth, getting the word out that you exist? What's kind of top of mind right now?
Top of mind right now is probably volunteers, and it's starting off semi-slow, right? Like, because I think 208 recovery has been around for long enough that people are like, oh, I can call, I have someone to talk to, but things are picking up. We just opened 2 weeks ago, and we're getting new calls from like probation and parole, like saying, hey, I got someone in my office right now, and I think part of the misconception is, yes, peers can meet clients out in the community, like there has been times when they give them rides, but people will be like, oh, it's a rideshare program. And it's like, no, it's not, like we're not a taxi service. Like we want to empower people to be able to, ride the bus system. And we had a perfect example of a call yesterday where we had a gal call, and she's like, I just got done with court and I don't know, I'm walking up towards this way. Can somebody come pick me up? And it was like, there's a bus, like, stop where you're at.
Yeah.
let's talk about this. Well, I don't even know how to ride the bus. And it's like, okay, well, you're, we're going to figure this out together. And she ended up coming down to the center. Her phone was almost dead. So we're like, okay, we're charging your phone. We're installing the app, and we're going to show you how to use it, so that you
the bus.
Yeah, for the bus, so that you can see that, this bus is right there, literally 2 blocks away from us. And it can take you almost it goes out to Post Falls. So you're like, you might have to walk a few blocks, but it really can be a convenient mode of transportation.
Yeah.
And, it's not just people coming to aid you, when you're like, I need it now. Because there's a level of having to put the work in yourself. I mean, I didn't get to where I am today by people just doing everything for me, you know? Like, I think that was like a number one thing. I was like, I have to be accountable for me and take responsibility for the things that I've done and the things that I want to do in my life. And so even when everything felt pretty impossible and I didn't know if 208 recovery was ever going to be recognized, were we ever going to get the funding that we needed? There were times when I was about ready to give up and just be like, you know what? Like, I have put a lot of time and energy into building this for my community, and, that interest isn't there, which was that's not true, because the interest is there, like, everybody is like, oh, I got, like, we want to send people and do all the things and have you help, and you're doing all of this work. But there were times when I was like, I'm about ready to be done. But I just kept trucking forward because I knew there were too many people that, I've helped over 500 people so far. Like, that's just with recovery plans and writing letters to the courts, and dealing with prosecutors and public defenders, like advocating for people to get into treatment and helping them, find treatment that would take insurance. And if they didn't have insurance, helping them get insurance. And, to me, that's like, not only am I investing in that person, but if they're like their families and, they're people that may have children and they have parents, and they may have burnt those bridges, and that's why they're not getting the help that they needed. And that's boundaries too, for the families to set. And that's okay. But, I've seen so many people go to inpatient treatment and then they get out and they're just like, or even intensive outpatient, and you're like, wow, what a difference, like to just see how different your life is today than what it was, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds, to have so much respect for you for just, like you said, trucking along for literally years to make this dream a reality that, I mean, you might say, well, I did kind of need it in a different way, but you didn't. You were recovered, right? You could have moved on and just kind of
I totally could have,
left
yeah.
those that part of your life kind of behind in a sense. I mean, it would always be with you, but instead you're always in it.
Yeah.
To help other people get to where you're at, which is really commendable, and the fact that you do it as a volunteer is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a long haul, and so we were blessed with our first big state funding opportunity for one of the 9 recognized recovery centers in the state. And so we are the recovery center for North Idaho, and that branches out. North Idaho has 5 different regions, and that's Boundary, Bonner, Kootenai, Shoshone, and Benawa. And so, yeah, I do work in all 5 counties the best that I can. If anyone calls me, calls the center, we're happy to help, whether that be, we understand the barriers, if you're living in rural Idaho and you feel like there's nothing available to you, chances are I probably have resources in your area.
Really?
Yeah, okay. But
so if you know somebody or you are that somebody, give a call, because you don't know what resources you might have. I know this was one of your side
tangents,
side hustle. It's not a hustle. It's side giving, giving back to the community. Those crisis calls that you do. Yeah. How far out do you what region do you cover with those?
Well, so with crisis, this is it's a state program, right? 988 is the Idaho suicide crisis line. They've been around. They're connected to 988, which is national. So it's an actual job that I do with Benchmark Human Services.
I would still consider it. So, I mean, it's a service. You might be getting paid to do it, but it's still a service, and it's hard. I'm sure what you see is you have to take a lot home with you.
I try not to. I think that my life has been such chaos and so traumatic, over the years. It's been super mellow and boring the last 8 years, which is good.
How you want it.
But, I'm able to really do my job and remain calm and focused and that anchor for somebody that may be feeling out of control, to just really connect with them and sit down with them. And that's my job as a peer, is to just say, hey, it's okay. And sometimes that's what people need to hear in that moment. And we go out in teams of 2. So I have a clinical staff with me, and we do all of Region 1 and Region 2. So we go all the way up to the top of Boundary County, all the way down to Orfino, Idaho. We've driven, it's we have a very large network.
Wow. Yeah.
And although, there's been some things where people are like, well, if somebody's in a crisis and it takes you 2.5 hours to get there, that's a long time. And
the bad thing's are going to have already happened or whatever.
And it's if somebody is in crisis and they can't wait 2.5 hours and there's, they're actively harming themselves, that is a time for emergency medical and law enforcement to get involved. And that's where, our job is really to de-escalate and stabilize in the community, and that's what we do. Majority of the time. You have people that want to go to the hospital and they want to get mental health help at the hospital. And I actually am it is so traumatizing going through the whole hospital system and sitting in the emergency room department for hours on end and not, being you get the eye rolls and, it really, it's not what people think, they're like, I need help and I need to go to the hospital. And it's you are much better off finding a program in your community that is going to actually work with you on a longer term. There are certain, I don't want to say the hospital doesn't do their job, because there is a certain element to it, of if somebody like needs medications and major stabilization. But when you're working with people that they are in crisis, but is it going to be beneficial for them? Like, I hear from a lot of people, and this is, I'm speaking on behalf of the individuals that I have talked to. They're like, I was traumatized going into a behavioral health unit because of how I was treated. And so I don't ever want people to feel like that, because it detours people from getting help, and it adds to the stigma, right? And so that stigma, I mean, we've had stigma attached to mental health and substance use for decades, forever, really. And I think that the times are changing, where we're, there's value in people's stories, and people can change. And so helping people identify, what those changes can be, so that they can make those changes, is really important. 208 recovery. And when I say that, because we have staff now, finally, but everything's still kind of like falling into place. So I still do a lot of the work. On Wednesdays, I go and volunteer at the jail, and I talk to the girls that are incarcerated in Kootenai County, and we talk about different things. We talk about, what brought you here, right? Like, what are the things, and we call those, like, what are the triggers and things that, brought you to this point, or that continue to bring you back, and we identify and kind of explore what that is. And then we talk about, like, what skills do you have, or have you picked up over the years? And if they aren't able to identify those, then we can talk about, what some of those coping skills might look like. And then we go over resources, like what's available in the community. I think housing is number one, for anyone. It's really hard. It's a hard thing. So I think my real estate license, along with, I was the executive director at Home Share Kootenai County for a while, which was a home share program. So I was like a matchmaker for people that wanted to rent rooms and people that rented their homes out, rented rooms out of their home. So I have some housing stuff, so everyone's like, oh, go to Tess. And we do run a housing program out of 208 recovery, too. So I'm kind of like, I know. I'm like, well, now I think about that. So we do, our programs are pretty awesome. We're going to have, and I picked up a doctor, too, that's going to be volunteering.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. He's like my unicorn, just fell out of the sky and was like, I want to volunteer with you guys. And I'm like, yes, please, So we have a really dynamic team of peers. Like, we have peer supports and recovery coaches. We also, have this new doctor that just came on board as a volunteer that will be running a veterans group.
Nice.
And running a peer, or not a peer, it is peer youth prevention and leadership program that we've built, that we're going to be, offering to our young adults ages 18 to 24. We'll have AA and NA and Dharma recovery, which is kind of based on the Buddhist.
Okay.
There's so many different types of recovery out there, and I really want to encompass all the multiple pathways, right? That it's not just one way. Yeah. Like if this doesn't work for you, maybe there's something else that does. So
yeah, that's wonderful. Wow, that's quite a lot that you've got going on. What does your family think of? Obviously your husband is supportive, or else,
for sure.
Yeah, and your kids are probably so proud of you now. And
my husband bankrolled all of 208 recovery for the first 2.5 years. So
what a guy! What a guy! Seriously. He is a saint.
I was like, sorry, honey, and he didn't care. He was just like, you know what? I would rather you spend money on something like this than
me bailing you out or whatever.
Bailouts or 8 balls of cocaine, or losing my money at the bar. Like, much more like satisfactory, like way to spend money. And then he knew that I was passionate, and that I love helping people. I've always been a helper. Like I've always helped people. People have always like, they pick me up or pick me out like out of the grocery store, and like people just walk up and start having the conversations, and so it's like, okay, this is my calling, this is my purpose. And that's what I was lacking, was that purpose. Like I didn't have a purpose. And so now that I've like really found it and honed in on it, it's almost like now I have, and people are like, well, you're the expert, like you're the expert in peer work. And I'm like, am I? Like, I don't feel that at all. Like I've worked in nonprofit for 8 years now, which isn't that long. I mean, I know people that have been in it for like 30, or longer. Yeah. And then I'm like, aren't they the experts? Like, why are you coming to me? Why do you want to know what I think? And my program director, she goes, you know how much work you've done? And I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, you should really be proud of yourself. And I'm like, I'm not, which is really weird.
Well, I guess it's not bad to stay humble.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't, I hope you're not like negative about
not
negative talking yourself, but actually you probably don't want to get too, that's what keeps us hungry and building and all of that stuff is to be like, no, I can do more. I can learn more. I can be better. There's people out there that do know more than me, and I'm going to latch onto them.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
So
and
that's
that's
healthy.
Yeah. And she's like, you need to, like, I think her whole point was like, you need to see your value the way that others see your value, which I'm like, I appreciate that. But at the same time, I do think it's like staying humble in the work that you do so that you don't become a jerk. Yeah. Like like I do know everything and whatever, because I will never know everything ever. Like I am a lifelong learner, and I will always be open and willing to learn more and keep trucking forward. But I know big and awesome things are like on the horizon.
I feel like you're already at the horizon. Hitting that dog. I don't know. There's just doors that are opening. And, what do they say? Like the harder I work, the luckier I get. Yeah. So none of it is really luck. You're earning these opportunities that are coming with the state, and so it's all super awesome. Congrats.
It's just like snowball effect. Yeah. It's like you keep working, and when you get to that point where you feel like you're failing and you want to quit, like keep going. And
it's kind of like when you have a baby and when it gets hard and you want to quit, that means you're going through transition and you're almost there. I feel like that's kind of it when you're building a business or a nonprofit or whatever, right? When you want to quit is actually, if you push through that, then you're going to have a baby. Yeah. You're going to have the most beautiful thing you've ever seen after that. So, wonderful. I feel like we've covered a lot.
We have covered a lot.
Did we miss? And you're one of the most interesting guests I think that we've ever had. What an amazing story! But is there anything that we didn't cover, or stuff that you want people to know about 208 recovery? Or
let me look at my notes, because my girlfriend, she's all about the bullet points.
Yes, bullet points are key. We said your need is probably volunteers. Right now, you're just getting
money and donations. That's one thing. I taught myself how to write the grants too, so I'm my own grant writer. So all the funds that we have like brought in, it was just like you'd get an email, sorry, not this one, sorry. Then you'd be like, oh, I got one.
Like 10 rejections. Yeah, or like for one win or
you're
5,
like 10 grand, 20 grand. So and I'll rewind back to like our very first grant that we got, right, which was like a year and a half ago from Optum, Idaho, and they used to be in charge of Medicaid. And so there was talk like, Magellan was going to be coming in, taking over that contract. And so there was talk like, well, there's still funds like available. So we had put together a meeting with some other community partners, and I was like, they're going, well, just ask for like $10,000, and I was like, go big or go home, I was like, I was like, would it be inappropriate, like, if we applied for 20,000, And he's like, no, I don't see why that would be inappropriate. I'm like, okay, cool.
Then I'm doing it. Yeah.
So I applied for 20,000 for a housing assistance program to help people that are incarcerated in jail get out. So, like, if somebody's incarcerated and they're homeless or they've lost their housing, they will go to prison. It's my understanding that they can, a judge will look at it and say they're at high risk because, they don't have a home. And if we release them, like, they're just going to, fall into whatever, and they're going to end up right back here. So, we'll give them some time and we'll send them down to prison for maybe a rider, or, maybe they have time. I don't know. But I don't feel like people should have to go to prison to get help.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it's conducive either. Like, I don't feel like they're going to get the help that they really need when they could be out in the community and working a job and, like, trying to better themselves through treatment and getting connected with, like, a counselor. So we pay for their first month's rent in transitional housing to try to help them have that 30 days to get back on their feet and, get back to work, because maybe their employer put their employment on hold while they were incarcerated, or whatever that looks like. So, we've helped a lot of people out of jail and get back into the community, because it's substance use charges, right? And things can happen, like, people can do really stupid things when they're on drugs or under the influence. But it doesn't mean that they don't deserve a chance to try to better their life.
Yeah.
So we started, that was our very first, other than peer support and recovery coaching, that was like our first real paid program, and still all of that money goes to housing people. Like, it didn't go to salaries, it didn't go, it was strictly programming stuff. So everything was all volunteer, those phone calls with prosecutors and public defenders and building the plans and doing all the other work. Like, I think an important thing is that people don't realize that without the operations, there's a lot that goes into the operating part of nonprofits, that you're run strictly on volunteerism, and that's not always possible. Volunteers get burnout.
Yeah.
And if you don't have paid employees or, like, people that can actually do that work outside of the volunteerism, that you can't continue to grow, and you can't, you're taking away from the programs because it's not funded, and sustainability wise, like, we ran that way because because I'm stubborn, and that was my passion, and we're moving forward, and I made it work. But sustainability wise, that doesn't normally happen within nonprofits, I don't feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
anything else on
my agenda?
I sidetracked you a little bit while you were looking at that.
So, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. Like the call to action, which is donations, volunteering, sharing resources, and attending events, encouraging. Do
you have any kind of fundraiser events or things that you do?
So in August 31st, we do an overdose awareness candlelight vigil. This year we had 23 photographs that we had blown up into 18 by 24s that we put out into, because this is just in Kootenai County. We had over, I think it was 38 individuals died last year from fentanyl overdose in our county. I could get the numbers for Bonner. But it's happening all over the state, it's huge.
All over the country.
All over the country, yeah. And so, we did a candlelight vigil. August 31st is overdose awareness. And we did a online memorial wall too. So if, there are viewers out there that have family members that have passed, they can email photographs and get their person put on this memorial wall. So the month of September, Human Rights Education Institute in Coeur d'Alene they took all of our pictures and displayed them at the Human Rights during the whole month of September. So the month of September is Recovery Month, and we did on the first Saturday of this last September, we had the Recovery 2025 Recovery event, and we had a really good turnout. It was good, It was good I threw a recovery celebration in 2022. So from then to now, it was like, all right, it's good to be back in the saddle, doing the events and, getting the stories out there and making people aware and getting people engaged and activated, where it's recovery is cool. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. But then we had our grand opening. So September is really our big month, and then we do a lot of stuff for Mental Health Month, which is in May. We try to participate and get all of our people that come to the center engaged and activated in other nonprofit communities too. So, we partner with our nonprofits. And so I always ask people, I'm like, what are you passionate about? What do you love? Well, somebody might really love animals. And I'm like, okay, well, then we're going to, connect with these nonprofits and get you, working with I have so many different networks and connections, and I'm like, we can start. My one friend has her dog grooming business, and they adopt animals. I don't know if she does it through Pamela Faye, but she's like, let's do recovery, the parolees and pit bulls type thing, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So there's just so many things that we can do in our communities to get involved. And if we're not individuals ourselves that, are in recovery, we probably know someone that is, right? Or have someone in our family that it's important to support these types of efforts that are being made in our communities so that people can recover for their families and for themselves and for the community. So,
Well, I'm inspired. I think what you're doing is amazing, and definitely an interesting path. A bumpy road, but a worthwhile road that got you here. And so, I'm thankful for what you do.
Thank you.
Even with your paid gig and your volunteering, all of it is just great. So thanks for coming on and sharing, and I hope our listeners check you out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. For more information, you can go to crecIdaho.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again soon.